I started at six. I thought it started at six. Well, actually, doors open at six. Kind of missed me. You did it. My parents do the same thing. I do the same thing. You got to do it. Doors open. Yeah. There's a massive act, but yeah, probably going to stay right, right in the county, right at the state limit. Yeah, he got some phenomenal bucks. Like, they go for the year. Um, really, Full tuition will be free.
All right, it's 5:31. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Do I need to make a motion to call the meeting to order, or do I just can I call it to order?
You just call it to order.
Okay, then make a motion to open a public hearing. Any seconds? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. All right.
I believe the applicant's here to present his application.
Sir, would you like to come forward?
All right, are you going to play photos for me? So the application, we're looking to build just a 6-foot standard privacy fence at 305 West Center Street. The reason we're here is technically because we've applied for the permit, there needs to be, the fence can only be 4 feet tall for the first 25-foot setback. You can see the property in this picture. I guess y'all are looking at it right there. So it would start, there's already an existing 6-foot cedar privacy fence that's there, and we're just looking to connect it and finish that fence to the backyard of 610 North Orange. So if you'll look right across the street on the left side of that picture, you'll see that this situation already exists. There's no, directly across the street, there's no 4-foot drop down before it goes back up to 6 foot. So that's, we would simply just be doing the same thing. We'd just be extending a 6-foot fence across. You mind showing a couple of the other photos I have? That's typical fence. So there's currently the backyard fence of North Orange. And so you can see the new construction. And so we're just asking that we don't have to put a 4-foot fence, go from a 6-foot fence down to a 4-foot fence, back up to a 6-foot fence. We just want a 6-foot fence, or I don't, the owners do, all the way across. And that's where the new fence would go. So there's 6-foot privacy fences on each side, and there's no visibility issues. There's a shed right there where the fence would go, so there's no alley there. It's not blocking any views.
Am I allowed to talk now? I'm new to this. Am I allowed to ask questions? Yes or no? Thank you. Is the fence running perpendicular to the corner, or is it going to go kind of parallel and run to the edge of the concrete? You follow me what I'm saying?
No.
Where the old fence is, is it going to go directly straight, follow the property line there?
It's going to, where that current fence is, it's going to turn and run perpendicular to that, straight
Will there be any of the fence, right, I was a little unclear, but will there be any part of the fence that's parallel to the road, that you do fence?
No.
Okay.
So
yeah, here's one thing that I don't understand, and I don't know. Like I said, I'm new to this, but I don't know a lot to ask you. The rules. I see the rules saying they have to have 4 feet. I also see the rule in 7.530 that says if the property owner where the boundary line or where the other side faces Orange Street, if they were wanting to go build a fence, they could build an 8-foot fence.
correct.
Right?
Yes.
And I also see the city's recommending we deny it. And so, and one of the questions, and I don't know if y'all can answer this or not without Daniel, but do we have grounds for equitable decisions in these things, or do we have to follow the rules? Because, this seems to be an asinine result.
Well, the homeowners, that's the person who owns 610 North Orange, right? So if I would have made this application on behalf of 610 North Orange, it's in the historical district, so the 8-foot fence may not fly, but we could build that. It would just be considered their backyard fence. There'd be no setback requirements.
Right. So
but they live in New Jersey and they're unresponsive. The Kordziks have written them letters. They don't respond. So that's why we've had to apply for the fence on the Kordziks property where this fence setback.
So if the neighbor paid you to build the fence, they could build it.
Correct.
They could build 6
Right.
foot.
We wouldn't. I could have gotten a building permit. We wouldn't be here. That's right.
And am I clear am I reading that right, or am I missing something?
No, that's correct. And staff tried to point that out, both in the images that were provided and in our breakdown of the review of the project. Ultimately, the reason why we're here this evening is because where he's requesting to put the fence is technically a portion of the front yard setback for this property. However, to your point, if the neighbor at 610 North Orange had requested to build this fence, the historic district notwithstanding, it would be their rear property line, which allows for up to an 8-foot privacy fence. However, that is not the case with this property, and this property is requesting to build a 6-foot fence in the front yard setback. And so staff did our review, and based on the neighborhood, the item C of our review is correct. It wouldn't impact the neighborhood negatively. It's an existing condition that's already in existence. If you look across the street, like Tim had mentioned, the property across the way has a 6-foot fence operating as the rear fence for the neighboring property there on the corner of North Orange and West Center as well.
My understanding is the owner of the property at 305 West Center also owns 4 across the street.
Correct.
So on one property, he has a 6-foot fence. He's being told he can't have that 6-foot fence.
Correct.
Property. If he were standing on the other side, looking west, built the fence. Staying on his property, he can't.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I went out and took a look, and I have 8 properties and a couple of blocks from here. Have 6-foot fences that go all the way to the end. My correct understanding, there are no utilities along the south side of Center Street. All the utilities, all the power lines are on the north side.
I'm not sure on that, yeah.
So when I walked through, I didn't see any. I mean, everything was coming in by where the alleyway was and where the street. All the power lines were on the other side. So the city appears to have developed a provision in the city ordinance that requires discriminating against certain property owners based on which side of the property line you see. My presumption is that that has to be an unintended oversight by the deliberate. So since section 7.530 of the city ordinance does not address what happens when the rear lot and the side lot of adjacent property are the same property, I would recommend that the ZBA consider adopting a motion for the city staff to have the following election language that city ordinance. In the event restrictions on fences differ between two adjoining properties along the property line between those two properties, the least restricted of the two shall apply to it. Right now we have
Can we do that?
we can make a recommendation. I mean, the city's got to do it. They got to talk to their lawyers and stuff. But it strikes me that we have an ordinance in place right now that requires discrimination against property owners simply because they happen to be on one side or the other side, exactly the same property.
Is that correct? Should we can make a recommendation to planning and zoning or to the city, or is that something that would need to be recommended?
This board technically doesn't make recommendations to city council. Planning and zoning makes those recommendations.
Right.
I mean, we can make a note, we can discuss it, but to open up an ordinance, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen immediately. Well, we're in the process of doing the comprehensive plan.
But we're doing the ordinance.
We do, but they're only looking at two definitions.
But so here's and look, I look at things differently, I know, but the one thing that I don't know is how much leeway we have. And by that I mean, do we have to find that the zoning regulations applicable to property do not allow for reasonable use? Or can we use some, for lack of a better word, prosecutorial discretion? Like, do we have some discretion on that? Or we either have to find that this code does not allow for, or this zoning is prohibiting reasonable use. I mean, if we don't find that, we have to reject it, or are we allowed some discretion, like on this board? And
I
that's
think the other way around would be we don't have to enforce a discriminatory rule using language that's discriminatory.
I know, like in the county, I mean, the commissioners only have certain, I mean, if someone checks the right box, they can go do whatever they want to do, whether they like it or not. And so that's what I don't know. I'm new here and I don't want to, I mean, speaking frankly, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be allowed to go build a 6-foot fence. I mean, and speaking frankly, how the result is if they say no, I'd be like, just go talk to the property owner and give them money and then say, will you hire me to build the fence? And then you'll have to say yes. But just because that just seems silly to me. But at the same time, we have to follow the law. We have to follow the codes.
We have to follow code.
But what they're asking for is a variance on that code. So what
But it
we
says
can,
we can grant a variance, and my question is if it makes affirmative findings
Right.
effects on that. And so my question is, like, do we have discretion to follow? Like, if one of these elements,
I
is
think
met,
to answer your question, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the city's recommendation based on that's their recommendation. That doesn't mean we have to rule that or grant that same recommendation.
That
We
is
can deliberate and grant whatever we all agree on. Does that make sense?
yes, I just want to make sure that's right. And my point
Well,
is,
it's a variance that is specific to this property is what they're asking for. We're not changing this for citywide.
no, I
Right.
understand that, but to grant a variance, there are certain elements that have to be met to grant the variance.
And there's those four requirements are right there. So
Right.
if we decide as a board that we authorize the variance, then we can authorize the variance. We have set a precedence going forward. So we might have to consider that as we go forward. So everybody can be authorized to go build a 6-foot fence pretty much anywhere.
No,
We
I
grid.
would disagree with that. There already are 6-foot fences that are within blocks. I can give you the addresses. 215 West College, 511 West College, 513 West College, 605 West College, 903, 902 North College, 209 West, 403. These are between not the back of the property, the two properties side by side, the fence all the way to 5 feet, 6 feet tall all the way.
Right.
So this isn't something that
But does it involve corner lots?
they're saying that it can't be built because it's a side lot.
Well, I understand that,
If
but
it's a corner lot line, they can build it in the minimum.
but but that's my question. Were those that you just identified, were they corner lots such that it's possible the corner lot built to 6 foot?
No, it's not. These are two lots. If you take a look at the illustration that's in section 7.50, it presumes that all lots are facing 100%. In other words, it has front side, it has sides, and it has. But we have a situation here where on one side of the property line is a rear property. On the other property is a side.
No, I get it. I mean, I've printed out 7.5.
Yeah, only because it's like side lot line does it have to have that 4 foot fence.
I'm not trying to overcomplicate this. I mean, I want to grant this. To me, doing otherwise would be dumb, asinine, and just an example of the city just stumbling over itself. I mean, at the same time, I don't know what my authority is. Point being is, do we have to have a check on each of these, and we can't use discretion if one of these is not met? So, for example, the zoning regulations applicable to property do not allow for reasonable use. If we find that even with these zoning regulations, as absurd as they are, still allow for reasonable use, do we have to reject it? Or can we use our discretion on this board to grant the variance if we don't find it?
We can grant the variance or we can deny it. That's all we can do. We can't change the law. We can't change the code.
I'm not asking to change the law or the code. I just don't.
But I don't think the variance. I don't think you have to meet all of those requirements. You just have to meet one of them.
No, we have to meet all 4.
See, that's where I'm.
So
Is that correct?
Section 5.650, which is the review evaluation criteria for a variance, does state that you have to have affirmative findings of fact on each of these 3 items. Staff has done our review and presented you the information that we believe to be factual. You as the board have the ability and have done your own review, and if you have a difference of opinion on that, that is your right, and you're able to rule based on your opinion and your own review. As part of staff's review, this is what we have found, and this is the information that we have provided you.
But if y'all had the opportunity to do that, so as you're standing there on the private way, you look across the 4 foot high fence, 25 feet back, with motorcycles.
Well, I brought a picture of what I mean. This is one of the reasons they fix all their motorcycles and a 4-foot fence.
I would say that it's not reasonable use to have a junkyard next door to your motorcycle repair shop in an R1 neighborhood. You can't screen.
Tim, do you have any comments on how not granting this variance could affect the reasonable use of the property?
Well, I mean, if the variance isn't approved, I'm saying now I try to think of it from this distant landlord who owns this property. They no longer have a privacy in their backyard. Now they've got a weird looking 6-foot fence on one side, drops down to 4 feet for 25 feet in their backyard, which is where probably the most privacy is deserved, and then jumps back up to 6 feet. I mean, it's just going to look weird in the neighborhood. And it's a historic district right there. That neighborhood's historic. The 305 West Center is not. It's right on the edge.
Has the historic board looked at this and
No, it came up initially, it came to my desk because it borders, that is the line. That property line is the line of the historic district.
so this is not an historic district?
It's correct. Their property line is not. The abutting property on
610
Orange
yeah.
is.
Yes.
And I mean, the court says they originally wanted an 8-foot fence back there, but I've talked them down into 6 foot to try to, and they agreed, like, let's simplify this. Now we're asking for too much, 8 foot, all of these things. Let's bring it back down. There's already existing 6-foot fences. Let's just connect the two. But, we need approval.
So which one of these boxes does it not check on the findings?
So per staff's review, item A and B, and I'll start with A, the zoning regulations applicable to the property do not allow for reasonable use. Per staff's review, we found that the property is being utilized, or I should clarify and say will be utilized, as it's still under construction, for the use intended by the R1 zoning district. So while the front yard setback may create an obstacle to desired placement and the height of the fence, it doesn't prevent the property from operating in the way that it was intended to operate. And then item B is that the plight of the owner of the property is due to unique circumstances existing on the property, and unique circumstances were not created by the owner of the property and are not merely financial and are and do not and are not due to the result of general conditions in the zoning district in which the property is located. Staff determined that the applicant's desire to build a fence to match the existing fence next door that fronts there on West Center Street is constructed by the owners of 610 North Orange. That's an existing fence that's allowed by right in section 3.100 as part of the neighboring property setbacks. Given the setback orientation on this property, it's not unique. And we did bring up the example across the street, bring that up. But with that said, we do realize that across the street is an existing condition with a 6-foot fence that was placed by the neighbor that owns the corner lot. But those are the two items that staff found did not meet the necessary requirements based on our review. But fully recognizing that it is a neighborhood that this situation does exist in, literally right across the street.
So you're saying that the same owner wanted to build a fence across the street. And they said the one that's 6 feet high, they could only have a fence that was 4 feet high, 5 feet, only 4 to 6 feet. Right?
That is correct.
So why don't you do that in this whole they have a place where you have a full 6 feet high fence and a new 6 feet high, all the way up right down my church.
Yes, sir.
New fences.
Sure, I completely believe you. And as part of the review, per the ordinance, per the setbacks requirements, that's why we're here this evening, is that what the applicant is requesting, the letter of the law, does not meet for this property, but it would for the property next door. And we recognize that, which is why the applicant has gone through the process and has done their due diligence and submitted a variance request to you for your consideration. Staff has provided our review. I would just like to provide a reminder that we are still technically in the public hearing portion.
So we need to come out of public hearing before deliberating. Do we have any more questions for? I got another.
Go ahead.
Is there somewhere in here that y'all were intending to operate this as or the owners are intending to operate this as a short-term rental? Is that's correct?
My understanding is it's going to be a long-term rental.
Okay. This shows here that the property is currently under construction.
Well,
is intended to operate as a STR non-conforming.
I don't know if that's been decided yet. I think they were going to apply for it, but if it didn't meet approval, they were just going to turn it into a long-term rent house.
I see.
But I don't know what the status is of it.
The property has requested a vesting determination, and that has been established, so they have the right to apply for an STR non-conforming permit.
Can you repeat that one more time? I couldn't.
Yes, sir. The owner had requested a vesting determination for this property, and they were found to have the ability to be vested under the 2018 STR ordinance. And per my conversations with the owner, they intend to submit for an STR non-conforming permit.
Tim, do you think there's a reasonable expectation of privacy for someone that lives in a house?
Absolutely.
And do you think there's a reasonable expectation to not have to look over to your next door's fence or your neighbor's fence to see junk when this house was purchased?
Absolutely.
Whether it's a long-term rental or a short-term, do you think that the impact would be an impact of having a junkyard next door to the spring?
Yes.
Make a motion. We go out of public hearing and into regular session.
Tim, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I don't. I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I second the motion. All in favor? Motion carried.
My thought is in line with you two. I mean, I think it makes sense. It just does not make sense.
I mean, here's
like visually or anything else to have a 4-foot fence, 6-foot fence
Well,
Same, 4 foot fence sandwiched between two 6 foot fences just because of a zoning
if you
situation.
drive through there, there are fences that go from 6 foot to 4 foot, and I can kind of see why, especially along alleyways. I mean, you saw these notes, and I think there are some. I mean, I can see, but at the same, I mean, it's one of these things where my concern is if we're going to. I mean, again, I'm new here, so I'm not trying to be the new guy pain in the rear. But if we're going to follow this, I also want to make sure we're consistent in how we rule. And so if we're going to have to meet these elements, these are ands and not ors on each of these elements. And so if we have to meet each of these elements, I want to make sure we do it each time and not just because however the wind blows. I mean, I think the city needs consistency. I think the people need consistency. And so I think we're like, for us, I mean, it would be an asinine result if we rejected it. At the same time, we have to make sure we can meet each of these elements to approve. Otherwise, he needs to go to his neighbor and give the neighbor the money to go build a fence, and then it'll be approved, which is just kind of silly. But I mean, I think that isn't. I mean, I think that is.
It
His
sounded
right
like
to
the
go do
neighbor's
it.
not reachable if they live in New Jersey.
And
Right.
the neighbor hasn't removed pile of deadwood against their wooden fence behind the fire hazard. I mean, the city should have it removed if they have it. So my understanding is we have, as a board, defined that all of these conditions. I think we can, from my perspective, we can say that does not allow use. So not reasonable use. You've got to come where going to have a more difficult time renting or selling property. It's got motorcycle repair going on next door. It's got spare tires. It's got oil. It's got computers. It's got junk furniture. And the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances existing on the property, and the unique circumstances weren't created by the owner. The owner didn't create the fact. All he wants to do is screen. He didn't create the fact that there's already an existing 6-foot fence at the border of the property. The other property. And so I think that if we find that those conditions are met, in our opinion as a board, we can approve this as variance.
And I think it's important to note before they started building, there were 6-foot fences all the way around this entire property.
Oh, there were.
To build the house, isn't that correct?
Correct, yeah. It was originally, there was a 6 foot fence that continued all and blocked off most, you can see the whole fence posts that were taken out. So, I guess there was I mean, I don't.
I think it's in on here on page.
I looked at everything else.
So we had a pre-existing situation where 6-foot fence was there.
Go to page,
You took it down, and now they can't rebuild the 6-foot fence.
Oh, 6-foot existing fences were in place before the new.
I think I mean, again, going to reasonable use, I think there's a reasonable expectation of privacy for this lot as described and shown in the pictures that you would expect to buy this house, live in this neighborhood. And not only that, based on the current conditions, I think it would be reasonable to expect you to have the same thing as your neighbor, you will use it the same way as your neighbor, to not have to look at a junkyard, and to be able to use it and live in a house in that manner way. I think that is reasonable. I think by not allowing it makes it unreasonable because now you're losing that expectation of privacy, especially considering there was the previous 6-foot fence there. And so I agree. I think we meet number A. I think for letter A, and I think letter B. I also agree this wasn't something that they created. I think, unique circumstances. I think this is unique. Just even the fact that the home city code has a diagram showing how you build an 8-foot fence. I just think B can be met as well. I mean, I think the city agrees C would be C's okay.
Devin, what's your thought?
Just looking at the regulations, the 7.530. That was what I was basing it on. And then the the letter of what we're allowed to do or what we're authorized to do. The reasonable use, I'm disagreeing on that one. I don't see proof that it's not allowing reasonable use. And then the unique, you know, these ordinances are already published and known, so I don't think it's unique. Not created by the owner, I understand, but it's not unique to this area. That's what we're following. We can, and the other two, I don't recall what they are. I don't have them in front of me. But as a board, I mean, we have the ability to grant the variance. So if everyone has their say, I'd like to call for a vote if that's the case.
Can just remind you that an affirmative vote of 4 is required to authorize the variance.
Okay. Okay.
Move that the board grant the variance requested ZBA 2022-04, variance to section 3.0 setback to the property located in the Gulf West.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Variance is granted. Shelby, is there anything else we need to do?
No, sir. Thank you.
We should,
I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, we need to.
Tim, just so you're aware, I will issue a notice of action regarding this item and we can move it through the building permit process. Thank you.
Yeah.
I should have done it at the beginning, but take a motion, or may I make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting, meeting minutes from, we have 2 meetings on here. From both of these? September 22nd and October 10th?
Yes, sir. A motion for each, please.
Okay, we'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 22nd, 2022 and October 10th, 2022.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Is there anything else? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Merry Christmas to one and all.
Thank you guys.
I'm just trying to. We're live.